Outsourcing of a company's retirement fund to an umbrella fund has been an industry trend for quite some time now. Over this time, we've seen the emergence and rapid growth of many commercial umbrella funds, but are they for everyone? To help me unpack this topic today, I've invited Steve Tennant, the Managing Director of the Tennant Group. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, Natalie. Good to be with you.
Lovely to have you. Steve, let's start at the beginning with a brief history of umbrella funds. Perhaps you'd like to share some of your thoughts around that.
Yeah, well, Natalie, I'm sure that the viewers will notice my grey hair. I've been in this industry since 1976, and I started out in Cape Town with Old Mutual. And at that point in time, Old Mutual had introduced what was known as, I think, Superflex, which I believe was the start of the umbrella industry. And those products came about from various providers, really aiming at providing the opportunity to have a formal retirement fund for very small employers. In around 1976, there were massive amounts of companies with their own pension and provident funds. But obviously, a company with 2, 3, 5 people, it wasn't practical. And so that was the common understanding of an umbrella fund at the time, was it was there for small companies.
Mm-hmm. And what are the main advantages of participating in an umbrella fund?
I think largely the cost issue for smaller companies is absolutely the main advantage. I know there was a survey done by another industry broker a couple of years ago where they said that up until about 100 members, there was a clear advantage that umbrella funds were cheaper. Over 100 members, it became perhaps more debatable.
And are we still finding employers of that size in the market now who have no retirement provision for their staff?
I think, first of all, to answer your first question, there are a number of companies who do not provide a retirement fund. And certainly now with the two-pot system, I think auto-enrollment and compulsory membership is probably the next step on the way to making the South African population self-sufficient at retirement. Certainly also the two-pot system is far more complicated to administer. So a number of bigger organizations that perhaps did their own funds in-house have moved to professional administrators or umbrella funds.
So you've mentioned a very important element of umbrella funds, which is one of their main marketing, I'm going to say, strategies or focus areas, and that's the saving in cost. And I've always thought that umbrella funds are able to charge a lower fee because of the streamlining of the administration. So it's almost a restricted menu of benefit structures that are available to participating employers. And because of that restriction or inflexibility, the administrator can then charge a lower fee. Is my understanding correct? Is this always the case?
Natalie, I don't know that that's a completely correct understanding. What I find really concerning now is that the vast majority of the umbrella funds that we encounter in the market have now got minimum membership numbers or minimum fees or some other restrictions which make it difficult for smaller employers who were the initial target market for them to join. So there are one or two funds now that do allow, but a lot of the bigger or better known funds all have these restrictions in place.
Wow. So for an example of one of these restrictions might be something like what? Anything under 10 members we're not interested in?
Yeah, some of them do have a minimum size criteria. Others have minimum asset sizes. So,
Mm,
you know,
mm, mm,
if you don't have 10 million rands in assets, and that's because a lot of the funds tend to not fully disclose fees, so they subsidize fees from, say, an investment charge, rather than implicitly saying this is an administration fee.
So that actually brings me to my very next point. I mentioned two reasons why I kind of have it in my mind that umbrella funds are cheap, and the second one is because of the use of associated service providers to sponsor. And so, for those who don't know, the sponsor is what we'd call the commercial entity that sets up the fund, and certainly to the ones that I've looked at, you'd find your multi-manager or your investment manager or your consultant also happens to belong to the same sponsor group. Is that still the case in the umbrella fund market generally?
Yes, it absolutely is, and that's not always a bad thing. If you can save on cost, then that's
Right.
fine. But it does also restrict in terms of independence of advice. It does create some issues. Very often, an umbrella fund, for example, will say that they will allow the broker to put the death and disability benefit with anyone, but then they would charge a higher fee to allow that to happen, which makes it actually then commercially not a viable thing to do. So the umbrella funds in general, Natalie, they are cheaper. There's no question about it. But they come with different issues, and it depends on the service provider or the sponsor as to what those issues are, and the general public need to be aware of that.
Mm-mm. So, so if I was a trustee of a standalone fund, considering moving into an umbrella fund, or even if I was a management committee in already an existing umbrella fund, what are the kind of questions I should be asking to surface these issues that perhaps aren't as well known or marketed?
Right. I think trustees in South Africa are reasonably astute in what they are doing. So they are generally probably more aware than just the man in the street. However, clearly you need to understand is can the umbrella fund that you are looking to go into place risk benefits with other insurers, or not? And if they can, is there a separate additional fee? Risk benefits, I know the insurance industry was a very, very competitive market for standalone funds. Obviously, with the move to umbrella funds, and particularly if they have garnered a lot of support in their own umbrella funds, they can push the premiums up a little bit, and then it becomes more profitable for them. The other issue that you raise is also the investments, your multi-manager platforms and so on. So can that insurer or that sponsor allow different platforms and investor choice outside of the group is a very important question.
Mm, mm. Any other challenges or kind of warning signs you'd want to encourage trustees to look at?
Yeah, in general, the biggest, I would say, uh, problem or potential problem is the whole current Section 14 process. Now,
Mm,
Section 14 of the Pension Fund Act was introduced by our regulator to ensure that people are treated fairly when
mm,
they move from one fund to another. And I think that's a noble cause. The problem with the Section 14 process is it can take quite a long time. So if you feel that you wanted to move from one fund, whether umbrella or standalone, to another fund, whether again umbrella or standalone, um, you would need to understand that you'd be paying administration fees on both sides for a period of time.
Mm.
So if the idea is one of cost savings, you might end up spending more money for a period of time during the Section 14 process, and that will take quite a long time to recover those costs. The other problem is that people would, I believe, want to be able to move from one service provider or sponsor to another if the service that they're getting is not up to scratch. And again, if there is an impediment to moving, such as the Section 14 process, it makes it more complicated than perhaps it could be.
Mm. And interesting, I mean, I'd be interested in your thoughts generally around that Section 14 process. Whose responsibility is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to comment too much on it, other than to say that both the receiving fund and the new fund and the fund from which you're leaving have responsibilities in producing documentation to the FSCA. The regulator has a responsibility to look into the documentation in a timeliest manner. But to be perfectly honest, these things do take time.
Mm. Sure. That's a conversation for another day.
For sure.
So then I think to wrap up, I think we know auto enrollment is coming. We know that people in South Africa are not generally good savers, and we'd be wanting to encourage more and more people to participate in these retirement funds. So to go right back to the initial question that led me to reach out to you, I mean, are umbrella funds for everyone?
Yes, I believe that umbrella funds in general offer a really viable option for employers to provide staff with a decent retirement benefit. Particularly now with the complexity of administration, that is certainly the case. There is a case for employers to have their own standalone funds. And definitely there's no reason why employers can't do that. But certainly the number of staff members that they would have to have is now not just 5 or 10 or 50. It's got to be a pretty large employer to warrant its own fund.
And even small employers now are able to access umbrella funds, which makes it attractive to even the little guys who perhaps are thinking that that they maybe are too small or not eligible.
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. There's no doubt that umbrella funds have been phenomenally successful and provide valuable solutions to some of the challenges of retirement funds at lower fees. But the devil, as always, is in the detail. So thank you, Steve.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Steve, for joining me today to explore some of these important factors that trustees need to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.